Hey, what's going on, guys? 118 Seth Shadow here, bringing you this week's first Market Watch. And we're going to start with a few announcements that Bushiroad gave this morning, including a new festival collection for 2023, where they've announced that the ride lines, the grade 3s of the ride lines from Lyrical Set 1, Willista, Lornero, Celestial, Felty Rosa, and all the remaining ride lines are getting new artworks in this festival collection. I think they fell short of telling us whether or not they're going to be retrains or not, but with that in mind, I wanted to take a look at a few singles from Set 1 and Set 2 of Lyrical Melody, starting with Aim to be the Strongest Idol, a double R that works with Clarissa. The double R of this is 50 cents to $1, based on just initial look here. Strongest Idols SP, you can pick this up for just under $10, but you are looking at only 6 listings here. Let's see, that's a lightly played version. Essentially $10 if you want to pick these up, so not bad. Overall, it is the key card for a Clarissa deck, so I don't think they'll be able to really get around being able to play that card unless they just completely change the mechanic. As for the earns corrects themselves that revolve around Clarissa, looking at some of these overall prices, you're looking at the SPs of Leona and Evelyn, and they are low to pick up if you still want these. $5, $2, it's not bad at all if you just want to have the earns correct, like Panorama. And then Trilby and Catalan only have hollows, they don't have SPs. But those are not too bad for pickup either, and there are a fair amount of listings that you can grab. And if you just want the regular rarity of Evelyn, that's under $1 right now. Same thing with Leona, so Earns Correct is definitely a pretty affordable deck to pick up at this point. 6-Flower Fractal for Lauren Errol. This one is over $1 for its double rare listing and is the key card to play in Lauren Errol for essentially being able to restand your board while also giving your Vanguard a really high level of power. The SP is also under $10 right now with a fair amount of listings, so also not too difficult to pick up this deck. Essentially, most of the decks from Lyrical Melody Set 1 really aren't that expensive to pick up at this point. Now you also have Asterisk Live Kyrie, who is also really dropping in value these days. This card would always hover between like $14 to $20, and sometimes it went much higher for quite a while, but it's dropped out pretty hard over the last few months as it's fallen out of popularity in comparison to several new decks that have just come into the fray. Especially when it comes to Lyrical Melody, most players now seem to play Lutetia instead. So if you do want to build Kyrie, it's not too expensive to get into now, so it's definitely an option to consider. Estelicial, though, is a bit difficult given this card, which is actually from Set 2, Privileged Potential Fenial. If you have an Celestial Vanguard, you can choose a card in the bind zone to put into your hand, then you put a card from your hand to bind. So this card basically enables you to control whether or not you have White Wing or Black Wing active, and if you have the grade 3 that enables both of them, using this skill to put that into the bind zone will actually allow you to use both. This card was bought out to the point of $15 a few days before today's announcement. Ultimately, this card has been one of the more expensive triple Rs to pick up from Set 2, though even as I say that, it was $5, but that was as low as it got. It's not a triple R that ever got below $5, really. But the only listings available for this one are now $15 plus, so you'll definitely want to keep an eye out on this one as we get more news as to whether or not Celestial is actually getting a new effect. Moving on, I do want to have a small section of buyout news, such as Diablo's Madonna Megan, who now has risen all the way to $30 for its RRR listing, and is out of stock for the SP. Honestly, I myself don't agree with the buyout, given that I just don't see the same potential it would have with Viamont's Bruce versus Grade 4 Bruce. But I mean, it is still powerful in the sense that if you use it with Final Burst, it's still going to be an almost guaranteed hit for the next attack, given that not only does it get 20k on its own, it gets an additional 5k on top of that thanks to Viamont's Bruce. And if you stand the booster behind it, if it's Ivanka, you could probably pull off a Julian combo far more easily with this card. And on top of that, it's just high pressure at the beginning when you ride into Viamont's Bruce, since you'll have Final Rush active from the start. But ultimately, that's all there is to it. It's just a really big beat stick. So I'm not sure about the $30 mark, but I haven't been playtesting the deck too much, so I can't really say. And then we finally saw a buyout on Mai. The SP from Festival Collection 2021. Now it's selling for $35 as of the last few days, with only one listing left at $43. So it was just a question of when, not really a question of will it. But yeah, Ariana, the heal trigger, should still have some $14 listings, but you'll want to keep your eye out on that one too if you're planning to build Diablos. But another card that got a buyout recently is Truce Green's SP from the same Festival collection. This is the heal trigger that comes with Seraph Snow in the trial deck. But this card is now $25 to pick up, where last listing sold was $15. We had some $10 sells. Ultimately, $12 seems to have become the norm of this card's price point at this point. But then we get to some more insane buyouts, like Aspiring Maiden Alana has shot to the moon from its gradually increasing price history. This was one of the crit triggers that just never seemed to drop off from $30 very much, and it suddenly just made its way to $40, then $50, and now it's selling past $150. Well, it's selling past $100 right now, and the only listings you can find, they're above $120 at this point. So, yeah, it's insane. Now, another card that has been bought out, it's off the market at this point. Serene Maiden Lena. There's only one damaged copy on the market, and last sells were in the 40s and 30s. I fear the prices that are going to show up once this thing hits the market again, so shop around, see if you can find this about this rate of price or lower, because it's gonna happen sometime. A little news on some of the reprint cards for set 9. Brainwash Swirler. Despite the news, the price has not wavered too much. Any copies that ended up below $40 got snatched up, and we are back to $45 for the minimum, and it's still selling past the $40 range at this point. So even with the reprints news, since we don't have a guarantee on the ratios of what these reprints are going to be, that's the other fear that players probably have at this point, is we don't know how many of these we'd get in a case. If Bushiroad is being generous, we'd still get 4 per case maximum from what I would think, because that would mean we have 5 RRR reprints, 20 boxes per case, which means 4 copies of each of the reprints per case. In other words, you can only get 4 Brainwash Swirlers maximum per case of set 9 if Bushiroad is being generous. If they're being beyond generous, that's a different story altogether. Inlet Pulse Dragon is also starting to creep its way back into the $30 mark, and copies that were under 30 are all gone at this point. So how this card will continue to trend is still a bit more fluid than Brainwash Swirler, in my opinion. So you still have some opportunities to get this below $30, but I wouldn't guarantee to see that anymore. And then another announcement that Bushiroad put out today is new support for Unica. This is the new Dark States boss from set 9, which revolves around critical triggers in order to activate its skills. The way this works is that for every critical trigger that you have bound, this card gains a new skill for every attack that it makes. So if you have 1 crit, you retire one of your opponent's rear guards. If you have 2 crits, this card gets a crit. And if you have 3 crits, this will also get a drive check. So the ideal situation for this card is that you're able to use its skill to Soul Blast 3 critical triggers. Then by that skill, it binds all 3 of them. And for the rest of the game, you basically get the ability to retire, gain a crit, and get an extra drive every single turn. Now, I couldn't really think of too many cards off the bat that really benefit off this, especially since the support is very locked in from what Bushiroad talked about, but Stem Deviate is basically a staple for this deck now. Compared to almost all the other Dark States decks that you've got, Stem Deviate was not really a staple for any of them except maybe Barrow Magnus. You can't even use this in Bruce, by the way, because it doesn't have Diablos in the name. If you try to play this for its effect in Bruce, you won't be able to use Final Rush. Just keep that in mind. You can't play this card in Bruce. But this is the only card I could think of off the top of my head to work with Unica that was prior support. And the SP, of course, is high up there in price right now, but the reprints are still under $10 and $5. And we have the 3rd reprint coming in set 9, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But one other thing I wanted to point out with Unica is I noticed that its name has an equals sign in it. And then I was reminded that Grave Zorga also has this equals sign. So, taking a look at Unica's name again, you see this equal sign in between its, like, what do you call it, archetype part of the name and then its actual name. And then you got Zorga, who's got this. So, just to point it out, Bushiroad may have something planned with this type of a name configuration using equals, because it's just really weird that they're using equal signs in these names for some reason. I don't understand why. But it's just something I took note of and thought you might want to know in case you have any ideas of what that might mean. If you have any opinions or thoughts, feel free to leave any comments, because I'm curious as to what Bushiroad might be plotting with that, if anything. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. If you have any requests, just let me know, and I will see about incorporating them in my next video. See you guys later.